Welcome back to America Right Now. I'm Tom Basile. Left-wing ideologies in our schools are often presented as positive enhancements to curriculum. Schools that feature ethnic studies that place an emphasis on race and gender and sexual orientation and ethnicity said they did it because they wanted to drive more tolerance. But has the result been the exact opposite? Joining me now is the Vice President of Parents Defending Education, Caroline Moore. Caroline, thank you so much for being with us on this. You've been all over this discussion in your latest op-ed. Walk us through how this really started. Was it with CRT or even before that?
Well, we actually think it's very close to CRT. A lot of the language that's being used, oppressed versus oppressor, and that type of thing, that is also readily available in the ethnic studies curriculums that we're seeing. The state of California has required schools to adopt ethnic studies curriculum by the year 2030. However, we've uncovered that California, a lot of the schools have already adopted such classes. And it's not just focused on history, even though ethnic studies, you would think, oh, kids are learning historical facts, learning about different cultures. It seems so lovely when you think about it at first glance. But when you actually take a look at the syllabuses or the syllabi in these classes, you see that the rhetoric is really looking at situations through the lens of oppress and oppressor, or a colonist and people who are being colonized. And so when you look at things through that lens, you're really pitting people against each other. Students are taught to look and choose the side of the people being oppressed. And if you do that, you're not really taking a glance at truth and facts of a situation.
Yeah, and of course, then the moral relativism, kind of comes into play here. And how is it that these schools, they're supposed to be about tolerance, and yet they ban conservative thought, they discriminate against people of faith. They don't, as I was just talking about in my monologue, they don't teach about the Holocaust, they don't teach about communism. And now you've got these teachers and students that are supporting terrorists in these protests across the country.
No, exactly. If you teach kids to look at a situation and pick the oppressed people and support them, then it's no surprise that these protests are going on across the country. Because the way that these classes are taught, whether it's a history course, an English course, Spanish, or even dance, we've seen, they're bringing ethnic studies into it in this lens of thinking. If you look at that, they see Israelis as people who are colonizers because they supposedly won. When you're looking at power in a country, they have power in the state of Israel, and so therefore they're the ones who are oppressing the poor Palestinians. And if you look at things that way, then it's no surprise who they're supporting when they get to college. It's very concerning.
They've been programmed to respond this way in many respects, and of course, the schools are not teaching that Israel is a capitalist democracy and a pluralistic society, and that's the reason why their quality of life is so much better than the authoritarian. The authoritarians in Gaza, for instance, or the Palestinian Authority. Caroline, learning about cultures, we were just talking about, is fine. We're a multicultural society, but is the real issue here that we have lost an American identity that our young people can understand, associate with, and be proud of?
Oh, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think that these courses are very un-American. You're not teaching a whole view. If you look at how they're teaching history now, they don't teach history like, oh, the Europeans came to America and, helped, work with the Native Americans and make things better. Instead, the thought is that our previous teaching of history was Eurocentric. And so anything that you previously learned is terrible and bad and needs to be thrown away. And I think that you know, there are definitely blemishes on history. There's no question about that. However,
Yeah.
you can't just pick sides. There aren't sides in
Right.
history. I think that you need to look at
Well,
the facts and what was happening during that time and really assess what the climate was.
you need to look at you absolutely need to look at the facts, and you can't gloss over the bad stuff and just only talk about the good stuff. But of course, it's all about balance. Real quick, and this is the tough question, Caroline, what needs to be done here? These universities seem to be so far gone. Do we need institutions? Do donors need to respond? How do you solve this problem?
You know, I think that's a great question. I think that higher ed, there have always been protests. I went to University of Wisconsin, so there were protests, you know, every day, and we were encouraged not to go to school and instead protest. So I'm very familiar with that, which is just ridiculous. But I think that we really need to focus, the focus needs to be on K through 12. If states start passing legislation that requires such courses that are so similar to the teachings in critical race theory and the DEI training, I think that that's very problematic for students because, like you said, it's indoctrinated. If you're taking like an athletic class such as dance, and they're teaching you that you're either the oppressor or you're oppressed as a human being, that's not appropriate. And also these classes, I mean, they
Yeah.
not only do they gloss over history, they're whitewashing it,
Yeah.
but a lot of these courses completely ignore Israel. And so I think that that's
Yeah.
another thing to think about. We need to think about all minorities in
Yeah.
this country and go back to American
Yeah.
teaching.
All right, we're going to leave it there, and I'm sure we'll be talking much more about this. Caroline Moore, appreciate you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.